This video is going to be about how to replace your air conditioning evaporator core and a little bit about leak detection. The evaporator core is the part that goes inside the cabin of your vehicle. That's what cools it down. And what I did was I had a small leak. I initially put some UV dye in there, and I did find a spot down in the bottom of the condenser on an O-ring that was showing a leak where I hit a small animal at low speed. So that replacing that didn't solve my leak. So what I did was I pressurized the system up to 200 pounds with nitrogen, and then I turned a small leak into a big leak, which was good because I wanted to find this thing. So then with that, it was coming out quite fast, which means that at that point in time, soapy water should detect it. So I had everything disassembled because I rebuilt the engine of my car, and so I had the bumper off and I had all this stuff, and I saturated that with soapy water, and it didn't come up with anything. And then I did it again. You know, it's like looking in the same spot for something that you lost, but it's still not there. So then I concluded that it had to be inside the cab, because this whole area I checked out, and there was no UV, and there was nothing leaking out. The Schrader valves were fine. So then I went into the cabin of the truck. I have a truck. I keep wanting to say cabin. So I came into here, and in the manual it says that you need to take the entire dash off to get it apart, which isn't factual. You can get to it without taking everything off. So what I did was I took out the glove box and took out the blower, and which I want to step through here, and I put a camera. I checked for leaks there, no leaks, no UV. I changed the O-rings, nothing, still a leak. So I put a camera inside. I have a borescope. You can get them on eBay for about $30. So I put a camera up in there, and the front side of it was fine, and the back side was good on one part, and then it just gets to just this nasty mess. And it was like the aluminum. It's a blob, and so it's got to be in there. It looks horrendous. So this is where water collects when it's humid out, which right now outside it's 89% humidity. So my evaporator core gets wet a lot, and something that is preventative that people say you should do is, before you turn your vehicle off or you get somewhere, turn the air conditioning off and let it run for the last 5 minutes, so that to dry it out. And which I did sometimes, but I mean, it's 23 years old. So I'm going to replace the evaporator core. I have intel that says that I can pull the whole thing out without taking out the entire dash. So I'm going to take out the glove box and the blower, and then I will be able to slide it out. So that's what I'm going to step through here, and the first step is remove all the crap out of your glove box. Then there are 3 screws up here, and there are 2 bolts down here. When you go to pull this out, there's going to be a wire there for the light that turns on, or should turn on if your light hasn't burned out. And then over on the right hand side, there is a wire going to be held on there with a clip for the airbag. It's the connector. So when you go to pull this out, you're going to have to grab that. And you don't really need to. These little clips come out and you can pop your box down, but you don't really need to do that. So once you take it out, this is part of the body, so you can't be shut when you're pulling it out. That's going to hold it. Okay, the glove box is out. This is the connector that I was talking about that hangs on the side of up there. This is the other electrical connector for the light. The next step is to remove this piece And the way you do that is stick a little screwdriver in there to push that in, and then just twist this thing back and it'll pop right out. There's another thing like this on the back side. I spent wasted time trying to push it in, and it didn't even matter, because you just, once you loosen this one up, just twist it and that'll come right out. And then for the blower, there are a couple of nuts and a couple of bolts. So there's one of them. There's the other one there. And there's the other one up there. Yeah, actually there's two right there in the sight. So also need to disconnect the cable and the electrical connectors that are on here. And then the whole blower will come down, and we'll have access to the evaporator core. Blower comes out pretty easy. The one thing you need to be aware of, this piece of plastic here is kind of hidden, and so the first thing you really need to do to get it anywhere is it needs to go that way. I think this side needs to come out first a little bit, and then that goes that way, because you're not going to be able to pull the whole thing out, and it's not really all that visible. So that goes into this hole here, so it's kind of hidden. So now I've got this out of here. If you look up there, there's that goo there. They put like a packing material around it to reduce condensation, and I've got some sound deadening material that I'm going to use in place of that. So the first time that I worked on this, one of those bolts I had a time with. I eventually ended up having to just cut it off, pulling that tubing out, and then using a vice grip to get it out, because it was rusted in place. And so I've already resolved that. This is going to come out real easy. Next step is to remove that little section of tubing. It connects to the couplers on the outside of the firewall, the other side of the firewall. So first step is, if you got any pressure in your system, take it out now so it doesn't surprise you when you disconnect something. So then get the pressure out, remove those couplers on the other side and the tube, so this will end up moving. Then remove those two screws. They are a 4mm Allen head socket. When I first did this, I didn't have a 1/4 inch drive or a long one. It was on there really hard, and the 3/8 drive head hit the tubing on the inner one. So it was at an angle. So what you're going to want to remove this is a 1/4 inch drive Allen socket, Allen wrench, so that you can get straight at the thing and it won't be at an angle, because the 3/8 will interfere with it. So I'm going to remove that tube, and then the next step will be to remove these screws on the side, and the evaporator core should slide out this way. This is one of the clamps that holds together the air conditioning line next to the firewall. This piece of metal slides in, and there's a piece of plastic on the top that it clips into. So to remove them, you need two pointy objects. I use picks, and you slide them in at the top, and you're going to feel it or hear it go across that metal, and then you need to push down on it a little bit maybe. These picks that I'm using are tapered, so I've got those two in place, and right now it's ready to pop apart. So that's how you get those things out. While I'm working on the evaporator core, I put some bags on here with some tape to seal off the other part of the system. The desiccant in my air dryer is new, so I kind of want to keep it in good condition. Right now, there's nitrogen in there, and there shouldn't be any moisture getting all the way to that while I'm working on here. I unbolted this to get it out of the way. When you disconnect that section of tubing from the evaporator core, you're going to move it around, so you need some room. This was kind of in the way, and I didn't want to be jamming into it. This is the, where is it? There, that's the expansion valve. And this was the screw that was good, and it's rusty. The other one was a real difficult to get out. So I pushed the tubing up out of the way, and the next step is, so this is where the evaporator core is, to remove all the screws. There's a wire coming out of the condenser that I want to pull out, so I had to disconnect the other side of this. It was connected to this piece of plastic. It was just easiest to unscrew the one screw on there, and then I could get to the other side. It's not really in the way, it was just I need to get this to pull the thing out. So that's out of the way. That one remaining nut on the stud remains there. That's a different part of it. So I removed all the screws and then it still wouldn't pull out. And then I realized there's one hidden screw inside the vent. A little bit probably corroded head from being inside the where the weather is at. But that's the last piece, and then that plastic will pull out, and I have a feeling there's going to be a mess. This disgusting mess was what my borescope was unable to identify. It was just a blob. So I'm suspecting that the leak is somewhere in there. This thing slid out real nice and easy and left a trail of dirt. So it's a good thing I put a towel down before I put it in, or took it out rather. So yeah, oh, right there. It's without a doubt the UV stuff. Yeah. There we go. Just trying to get it good on the camera. So, all right. So here's my UV dye. I found it inside my core. Without a doubt, this is the source of my leak. Cameras, yeah, you just got to look at it a certain way to see it. But all right, that's positive confirmation, and I know I'm going to breathe a lot easier now, and my air conditioning is going to work a lot better. Really looking forward to this. This is the side cover to the evaporator core box. This is that hidden screw inside the vent. Otherwise, it's all these screws around here. Another one right there. Temperature sensor going to the middle of it. I want to clean that out. I use a shop vac to clean out all the large debris on the inside of the evaporator core box. And then there's this tray sliding in this way. All the condensation goes down there. I'm going to go up, clean that thing out. It comes out of tube. I wanted to make sure that the tube was empty. You can see it down there between the exhaust and the sway bar, anti-sway bar. So I used air compressor to blow crap the other way, so it went up into the inside there. But I vacuumed everything out, and then what I'm going to do is there's still stuff taped on there on the inside like that. So I'm going to use a microfiber towel to clean that all out. This hasn't taken a whole lot of time. I'm about an hour into it, and taking video and pictures adds to that. So this isn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be. The original evaporator core has insulation around the edges to make sure that the air goes through there for efficiency. If you don't do it, it's not super critical. You're just going to be less efficient. I happen to have some, so I put on what I could, and around the outside it's 1/8 inch. I already slid it in there, and it slid in really easy. So 1/8 inch would do it. Maybe 3/16 would be a little bit tighter. And so we got that sealing off, and then I put the O-rings on there. Use Nylog Blue. It's a lubricant to help them slide in, and they say it keeps them from leaking, or less likely to leak. And I put in 1.4, actually I put in more than 1.4. The manual calls for 1.4 ounces of PAG oil. And I've had a persistent leak for a while, and the PAG oil is going to leak with the refrigerant, and some of it will. So I put in probably about 2 ounces instead of 1.4. I replaced my condenser and did the same thing. So the only thing really remaining under my system is the hoses and the compressor itself. I got new hardware one of the bolts was corroded and stuck in there, and it was really difficult to get out the first time. I got stainless. It was all I could really get on a short notice. I think that zinc would be better because of the dissimilar metals. One of them turns into anode, one of them turns into a cathode, and when you add water in there, it's like a battery. So they actually corrode. So I couldn't get any zinc quickly, so I'm going with the stainless, and I put some little dab of anti-seize in each one of those holes to help prevent some of the corrosion and the difficulty because getting the old one out of there. These are M5 by 55 millimeter, and then they got the 4 millimeter socket head. So you're also going to want a socket 4 millimeter. That's a 1/4 inch drive. The 3/8 drive was too big and it hits the tubing, and that was part of my problem to begin with. So you're going to want to have that tool to start out with. Evaporator core is in, and pull the vacuum on it. I'm going to let this sit a little while just to have it suck anything out that might be in there. And I'm going to turn the vacuum pump on a little bit longer. And after that, what I'm going to do is charge it up with nitrogen. My nitrogen bottle is almost empty. I need to go refill it. So I'm going to use the remainder of it to flush the system. So I'm going to charge it up. And one thing to do, especially with this being an evaporator core that was replaced, you can flow nitrogen in the high side and then out the low side. So that'll flow air through that and suck anything out that's actually in there. Replacing the evaporator core should take about 3 hours or less if you don't run into any problems like I did. I mentioned this during the video, but I ran into a problem when I was first trying to troubleshoot this, which was one of the bolts on the expansion valve was just really tight, and it was because it was all rusted out and corroded against the aluminum. So what I ended up doing was drilling the top of the cap screw off, the old one. Makes it really convenient to just stick a drill bit right in there, and you can see it centers it, and drill it all the way down. And then when I got close, I just took a vice grip and then ripped the head of it off. Then I was able to remove the expansion valve and the tubing out of the way. And then I used a vice grip to get this off, which was really a pain. And if I had known that I was going to replace the evaporator core, I wouldn't have needed to do that step. So the corrosion is from condensation on the expansion valve, and that's what this packing material is in there for. So this is actually really important. And the other thing that will happen is that condensation on the expansion valve will drip down onto your carpeting, so you don't want a wet interior. So I spent about 2 hours searching my garage for some sound dampening material that I know is here, but I can't find it. And then I remembered I have this butyl tape. This is what's used for an RV window to seal it. Butyl can handle standing water. It's a great product. So you should use either something like this, or on Amazon there was a listing for about 13 bucks for it was butyl rubber for air conditioning. It was made for exactly that, just wrapping around the thing. So you don't want to skip that step. The other thing is when you put your refrigerant in, you want to weigh it. More is not better. The manual says 400 to 460. The sticker under my hood says 400 to 450. So target between 425 and 430. Don't try and put in more. It's difficult to weigh it with the hose on there. So really the optimal is that center point. The other thing I want to mention is that there's these foam rubber floor tiles. These are really useful. I didn't really spend any time in the car while I was doing it. I was outside looking up on it. If you had a lift, it would make things even easier because you could lift the car up, or if you wanted to, you could jack the front of the car up just to raise it. But it wasn't too bad at all. And that is all. Like, share, and subscribe.